Every week, millions of people move home, and as it's one of the most stressful things that you'll do in life, you need to get it right. I'm Rebecca Jane, and together with the region's best property experts, we'll be giving you some top tips and expert advice, shining a spotlight on a different area from across the Midlands, and getting to know a little more about our guests and what they look for in a home. Property is ever evolving and always a fascinating subject. We'll guide you on what you need to know and what you need to look out for here on Midlands at Home. On this week's show, we'll be taking a look at auctions, what it involves and how it works. My guest this week is Cheryl Lewis from Edwardsmoor, the estate agency. Cheryl, welcome.
Thank you.
It's fabulous to have another girl on the show.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
And tell us about your background and how it all started for you at Edwardsmoor.
I've worked there for 16 years. They've been auctioneers for 20 odd years or so, and then I got more heavily involved around 12 years ago.
It's a fascinating subject, isn't it? I think, you know, whether you've seen it on the telly or whether you've just heard about it, whether it's something you want to do yourself, people are a bit nosy and kind of just want to understand how it works a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. It certainly creates a lot of excitement and a bit of a buzz. People see an auction board up and it, you know, does create a lot of interest.
Yeah, definitely. How does it work?
We'll go out and appraise a property like we would for private treaty, and then we'll come to a mutually agreed guide price with the vendor. It'll be advertised on the internet, and then we'll do block viewings right up until the auction. In the meantime, the vendor will have employed a lawyer to do the legal packs for them. Once those are ready, that all goes online as well, so that the purchasers can see all the legal documents before the auction. Yeah. Then it goes to the auction night.
And I suppose that's the beauty of someone like yourselves, is that you can advise, no, open market, or actually have you thought about taking it down the auction route?
Absolutely, and the joy is that we can offer both.
Yeah, so, definitely. Yeah. And you were talking about preparation. It sounds like there is a lot of preparation involved, and is that something that someone like you guys can talk through the whole process? Because I think as somebody starting out that hasn't done it before, they haven't got a clue actually where I start. You guide through and sort of hold our hands throughout the whole process?
Absolutely, yes. We'll help you all the way along the process, yeah.
And can any property go to auction?
Yes, any property can go to auction. The best properties to go are properties that have got mine shafts, or something a little out of the ordinary, structural issues, deceased estates. There's a whole range of properties.
Talk us about unusual properties. You just said mine.
If they're mine shaft affected,
yeah,
which in this area particularly,
yeah, of course,
some
the
properties
area.
Can be affected by mine shafts. Obviously, it's more or less unmortgageable.
Right.
So that's why the auction route is the best route.
Ah, see, it's a whole different field, isn't it? And I think that's why people are fascinated by it. Different type of properties that go to market, and it's quick, isn't it? I mean, we're talking as soon as that hammer falls. How long is it then?
It's usually 28 days, because at the drop of the hammer, when you've purchased that property, that's exchange of contracts.
Wow.
So it is quick. And after that night, you've usually got about 28 days to complete, but you would need to check that.
But that's the exciting thing, isn't it? Because I know, you know, as it happens at the moment, you know, we are moving home and, you know, in a rented property, and the purchase, again, as it happens, it's kind of not working out so good at the moment because she keeps pulling out of purchase, and it's just the way it is. But actually, I'd love to have that peace of mind that you've got that exchange, because you've got, you know that it's your property, and then off you go with the completion. So can you delay that completion further than 28 days?
It depends on the particular circumstances, and it depends what completion date states on that contract. It is fairly strict. If it says 28 days, it's 28 days. Yeah. That they will have a little bit of a leeway for 14 days after, but you may be paying a little bit of interest.
And you'll work all of this out before we go to auction, so you'll know that property, lot number 12, say, is a 28-day completion.
Yes, yeah, you will have looked at the legal pack, hopefully.
Talk us about the legal packs, because you hear words like that and you think, oh God, it sounds like a nightmare. Yeah. Talk us about
the legal packs will be available online. That will have in there the contract, the searches, and hopefully sometimes the property information forms, etc., and the office copy entries, and all of that is there for you to view.
Yeah, and what sort of homes do you tend to see then? We talked about the properties that might be problematic, so ones that you might not be able to get a mortgage on. What other sort of properties do you see going through?
It varies. Yeah, any type of property can go to auction.
What's been the most expensive property that you've seen at auction, and then the other extreme?
Well, I can say that one property that we had quite locally, the guide price on that one was 100 to 120,000. We had quite fierce competitive bidding on that. And that went because we got two neighbours, one either side, and they wanted that property.
Ah, yes,
so the guide was 100 to 120, and it went for 340.
340,000?
Yeah.
So it started at 120. What was the reserve? Was that the reserve or?
The reserve, I think, must have been 120. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you ever see what happens after? Because obviously, you know, the neighbours wanted the property, which you understand because they can knock through or do whatever, and great investment. Do you ever see or hear of what happens afterwards?
Yes, we did hear that they have done the property up, and it's a fantastic property now. So,
God, that'd be great to go and see afterwards, wouldn't it? Because I went to an auction some time ago. It was just fantastic. I loved it. I loved the buzz and the excitement. And there was a guy that I was speaking to there, a doctor, and he goes very regularly. So do you see a lot of regular faces? Oh, it's Mr. So-and-so, he's back again.
Yeah, we do certainly get our regular clients in, but we are getting more and more people now from far and wide, because it's advertised nationally.
Right.
We're getting buyers coming from all over the place now.
Yeah, so you think people are just more aware of auctions generally?
I think they are, yeah, and I think programmes like this are highlighting, you know, the speed and ease of an auction, and it's certainly created a lot more interest.
You know, two words that I love, speed and ease. With my move, I've had neither, so I mean, I would love speed and I would love ease, let me tell you. So we've heard that property, for example, that was on at 120, they got 340. That's amazing. So it's clear to see that actually you can sometimes get a lot more for your property at auction.
Yes, yeah.
And do you think that's because of the buzz and excitement, and you know, it's so quick that maybe especially if you're new to it, I imagine that, you know, if I was at an auction and you love something, you've got to stop, haven't you?
Absolutely.
And sometimes your heart and your head.
You've got to know when to stop, and the auctioneer is there to get every single bid out of you.
Of course.
Yeah, you need to know when to stop.
Yeah, and they're clever, aren't they, these auctioneers? The guy that I saw, the auctioneer, he was amazing, and he knew, it was his stage, isn't it? You know,
it is, you know, yeah, it's a performance, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So it looked quite exhausting, actually. You know, at the end of it, I thought, blimey,
it's certainly not an easy task being up there as an auctioneer.
That's it. Deserves a pint down the pub at the end of it.
Absolutely.
So what else is going on for you at the moment?
We're just in the process of putting together our October auction, so we've got quite a few interesting lots coming in that. They'll be going live in the next few weeks, and then that's all when the excitement starts. Then we start getting the phone calls in. Yeah,
definitely. And how long does it take? Does it take a couple of months to do the next auction?
Yes, we have them. We have 6 a year, so it's on average every other month.
That's quite a lot, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and are they quite local?
Yes, we have them in the Walsall Football Club,
Yeah, brilliant. And do you find that some auctions, you know, you've got a room packed full of people, so it must be... I always think, how does the auctioneer literally see the slight... Because when I went, it was such a slight nod of the head. I thought, how did he spot that?
Yeah, he's got to have his wits about him, yeah. He's usually got somebody next to him as well, having a look. It's not always easy to spot them.
No, what's that? So you said there's somebody next to them, so they're literally in charge, I suppose, of the monies and the lots. And
they're just keeping track of where the auctioneer has got to, because it's very easy for him to take his eye off the ball quickly and, you know, forget where he's got to.
That's it, I know. And it's an amazing job being an auctioneer.
It
so the chap that you use that does the auction, how did he get into it?
He did charity auctions to start with, and his business partner beforehand used to do the auctions for a number of years, and then he just gradually eased into it. But he loves it. He loves it.
Oh,
yeah.
And what about the properties that? Because you always see the properties as well that they might not get what they wanted for it. We've got what's called a reserve. Talk us a little bit about what a reserve is and how that works.
The reserve is a property is put on the market with a guide price, and that is exactly what it says, a guide.
Yeah.
The reserve price now, due to recent legislation, has to be, if it's a single figure guide price,
right,
it can only be within 10, the reserve can only be within 10% of that guide.
Okay.
But if it's a bracket where it's 50 to 60,
yeah,
the reserve price has to sit within that bracket. And the reserve price is the price that we can't sell the property below.
Yeah, and really, I suppose, as a seller, that's your peace of mind, isn't it? That you know, and you know, you've got to, if you're happy with that reserve when you go into the auction, in my opinion, really, you can't lose. Apart from if it doesn't sell, I suppose, you know, you can try again or look down a different avenue. But at least you have got a peace of mind, haven't you?
Yes, yeah, you've got the peace of mind that it's not going to sell below that price.
Yeah, exactly. And choosing the right auctioneer, how do you do that? What advice would you give on choosing?
Do your research.
Okay.
Go online and have a look at the auctioneer's website. Have a look at their results. Have a look at the testimonials. I think it's always better to have a local auctioneer that's got possibly the backup of a national brand, but somebody that's local.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're going to be joining us after the break, where we will be looking at what happens on the night of a live property auction. So don't go anywhere. I look forward to seeing you in just a few minutes. This week's spotlight area is Bloxwich. Bloxwich is a small town and civil parish in the metropolitan borough of Walsall and is part of the Black Country. Its neighbouring villages are Pelsall and Brown Hills. Its origins date back to as early as the Anglo-Saxon period. Traditionally, there has been a strong rivalry between Bloxwich and Walsall. Bloxwich town centre is still mostly made up of Victorian and Edwardian buildings and leafy parks and gardens, which maintain its origins as a Staffordshire village. From the Georgian period to the 1960s, Bloxwich had more public houses than any other town in Walsall, though these have begun to disappear. However, its jewel in the crown still resides there, the Turf Tavern, a Grade 2 listed building which, according to some people, is one of the last truly unspoilt terrace pubs left in the country. Now, before the break, we were talking about auctions and the process. We're now going to talk through what actually happens on the night of a live property auction. Cheryl, talk us through the basics from the very beginning on what happens on the night of the auction.
Okay, as the buyers come into the room, there'll be registration desks for them, and the staff there will talk them through how they register. They'll simply give their name and their address. If they know the details of their solicitor that they'll be using, that's always useful. And they'll tell the registration team how they're going to pay their deposit.
Right.
They'll then be given a bidding card, and then they'll take their seat or stand around the edges as they do, ready for the auction to start. At the drop of the hammer, if they're successful, one of our members of staff will go over to them and escort them over to the cashier's desk.
Oh, straight away?
Straight away,
right.
Yes. Unless they're bidding on more than one property, which we always like.
Yeah.
But they're taken over to the cashier's desk, and then they'll pay their 10% deposit.
Yeah.
And hand over their ID. So all buyers will need to have with them their passport or their driving licence and a utility bill, something to prove their address. Yeah.
When I went to the auction, I have to say, you could just feel the adrenaline and the excitement. It was a brilliant atmosphere. It
is, yeah. And once the properties are going above the guide price, it can go completely silent in the room. Yeah. You can hear a pin drop.
Yeah, you know. I bet. And you were saying before about that, and that will stick with me, that house that was 120,000, that was the reserve, and it went for 340. Yeah. You know, you must have all just been sat there like, wow!
It's exciting for the staff, but the tension in the room, because people are literally watching from the one person to the next.
Yeah, and that's what you want, because I suppose it's a bit like if you're selling on the open market, ideal situation is that you've got two people that want your property, and that you know, they're getting closer and closer to the asking, or sometimes going over, and that's exactly what you want.
Right.
You know,
these two neighbours want wanted that property at whatever cost,
Yeah.
and it just kept going and going and
And
going.
it's knowing when to stop, isn't it? Do you always see, do you think, oh, they're first timers? You know, can you tell, you know, the people that have never done it before and they're just kind of getting carried away, and those that you go, well, actually, he's quite shrewd, and you know that they're going to...
Yeah, you can see the nervous ones and some that will act quite cool, you know, not bothered really.
Yeah. And how do you, so if you're in a room, I know that I saw a few sort of nods, or what is the sort of protocol, if you like, for actually bidding?
Ideally, clearly showing your bidding card.
And what's on that card, a number?
It's just a number,
Okay.
yes, and the auctioneer then at the end, if that person's successful, he will tell the staff then what number they are, and we can find the registration card from that.
Well, then you're making it easy for the auctioneer, aren't you? Because if you just
Absolutely.
literally got, like I did see the odd person just do that, and I thought,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And then I found when I was literally looking at somebody who did that, I thought, oh gosh, I could be, you know, you've got
That's
to
right,
make
yes.
it clear with, okay,
Yeah,
you know, I wanna
some
go
of
for
them
that.
will just, you know, gently nod their head. Once the auctioneer has spotted you as a bidder,
yes.
he's keeping his eye on you then, but
Yeah.
you've got to make it clear in the first place that you are in for that property.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And do you, you know, do you see people bidding from the bar, from sitting down, from standing up? Can they?
Yes,
Yeah.
they.
You laugh when you say that, there's a
yes,
story.
because we do have people standing right at the bar. You know, you've got people that don't want to be known that they're bidding for that property, or they don't want other people to see.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, so they do sort of hide
And then
in
the cheeky little
shadows
ones
a
that come
little
in at the
bit.
last minute and suddenly bid, and you think, oh, where
Yes,
did you come
where did
from?
they come from? Yes, yeah.
And is that quite, you know, do you find people quite strategic with it?
Oh
sometimes?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Bit of game
the
playing.
professional auction goers do have their game playing. Yes,
Yeah.
you see them coming in right at the last minute.
Oh, that's a good way to play it. I quite like that. What about phone bidders? Because when I went to the auction, I saw the phone bidders. How does that work?
Yeah, telephone bidders, they're becoming more and more popular. They will register before the auction, and they will have paid their 10% deposit before, so that everything that they needed to do is already done.
Yeah.
Then on the night of the auction, whoever's doing the telephone bid on the night, they will ring the clients, speak to them before, make sure we've got a clear telephone line, and then just
Right.
prior to that lot starting, they'll ring them, and they can hear what's going on in the room, and the person on the phone doing the bidding for them
Yeah.
is talking them through it the whole time.
Right. Okay. Now you've mentioned 10%. Is that quite strict? That's what the
Very
deposit?
strict, yes. 10% deposit, as are 10% or a minimum of £3,000.
Right.
That has to be paid on the night in cleared funds.
Right, but it's got to be cleared in. Well, it has, isn't it?
Yes,
Really, otherwise
yeah.
it's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, talk us about. We've spoken about what happens on the night. There's loads and loads of prep that goes on actually in order to be ready for the night. So you know, as you said, it's about 2 months. So you do 6 a year.
Yes.
So you need that 8 weeks really in order to get everything
Yes.
ready.
Well, as soon as one's finished, we're starting on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a constant treadmill. Yeah.
And what's that preparation from getting the right agent, and then you go, okay, I'm going to go down the auction route. So then what happens from there? We mentioned legal packs. What else do we need to do as a buyer?
As a buyer, you need, if you're going to have finance on a property, you need to have that finance in place ready,
Yeah.
ideally. Because of you exchanging contracts at the drop of the hammer, it's no
Yeah.
going back, really. You've paid that 10% deposit and you're in it.
And what about from a seller then? So you've got, like I said, sorry, you've got the agent, and then you've decided that you're going to go down that route, and it's obviously going to be various things you need to do. So what do I need to do as a seller as well?
As a seller, once you've instructed us to put the property on for you, and you've instructed your solicitor to do the legal paperwork, that's your part done.
Really?
Then it's all in our hands.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, so you've got your work cut out, doing
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
various things. What about if I need, because we've said a lot about people having, you know, cleared funds, and people, you know, some people are very lucky that they can just purchase the whole amount.
Yeah.
What if I do need a mortgage? Can I
If you
still go
need-
down an auction?
You
route?
yes, certain properties are still mortgageable at auction. Obviously, if it's mineshaft affected or structural issues, that's going to limit whether
Yes,
you're going to
definitely.
be able to get finance. But as I said, if you do need to have a mortgage, definitely do all your research on the legal pack as you would anyway, and have your surveys done before the auction.
Yeah, and I suppose then you've got that chance to, like buying any property, if anything does get flagged up in the survey, you know exactly what it involves and you're fully prepared.
Absolutely, you're pre-warned.
Yeah,
then,
because you do hear of people, I mean, and I don't know whether it's just things that people have seen on telly or heard these stories, but of people not getting surveys done and stuff. Do you have to have all that? You know, you do hear those horror stories, don't you?
Yeah, you don't have to have the surveys done prior, but it
in your
is
best interest.
advisable to just do as much research as you possibly can.
Yeah, because you hear of people saying, "Oh, got a real bargain at auction," and then they go to have the builders around, and it's just there's rot everywhere, and there's just major structural work, and just problem after problem, really.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And I suppose that the beauty with auctions is, like you said, the varied type of properties that you get. So you get the properties, I suppose, that are in quite good working order, and then you get others that must be just major renovation work.
Oh yes, yeah. We had two recently, quite locally, and they were next door to each other. They created a lot of interest because you walked in there and it hadn't been touched.
Oh really?
So
for how long? What era was the property?
Crikey. It hadn't been touched for 40 odd years, 50 years. So
like a time warp.
It was like a time warp, yeah.
Yeah, I remember a house about 10 years ago that we got, and it was just, you walk in and it just takes your breath away, because you're like, oh wow, gosh, how can you live like this?
I know, it's quite amazing, yeah.
Yeah, so the two properties that were next door to each other, that obviously causes a bit of a stir as well, doesn't it? Because the investment opportunity, and that's what you see a lot of with auctions, don't you? Investments.
A lot of investments, yeah.
And do you see a lot of investors coming through, familiar faces that are buying properties around? Do you see them turning them around quite quickly and then putting them back?
Yes, you do, yeah. And you do get them that keep coming back each auction or every other auction, and they keep on buying.
Yeah. Do you get people that get that auction bug? They go and they love it, and then they're just back for more?
And I think, as we said, I think people like that speed and ease of it. I think it's, people, particularly investors, it's a much easier way for them to purchase a property. Yeah.
There are two words, Cheryl, that I've taken from today: speed and ease with selling your property. I mean, that's just what every seller wants, And I suppose as a buyer as well, you just want things to be as easy and as straightforward as possible.
Absolutely, we like it to be as clear cut as we possibly can, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. So, it's something that you've certainly been doing for a long time. Have you noticed in the 16 years that it's changed much?
I think it's changed, as in it's more internet based, and whereas it was always advertised in the local paper, we do still advertise in the local press, but it's more Rightmove and the property websites that create the interest.
Yeah, internet's gone crazy.
It has,
where would we be without it?
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you next week for more on Midlands at Home. Take care.